So welcome, Richard. So this conversation between the two of us is about the GDPR, because it has obviously meant a lot to everybody in the SAP community. So thanks for wanting to share your experience with us. Could you present yourself and your role at JM?
My name is Wenell. I'm managing the IT part of JM, which is a part of our business development corporate function. It's a quite small unit where we work a lot with external partners for development. So a partnership with EPI-USE is one of them.
And JM, what kind of company is it for those who come from outside Scandinavia?
Yeah, we're only based in Scandinavia. So we're a house construction company. We're based in Norway and in Finland, and then mainly in Sweden. We build houses for people to live in. That's our main business. The business starts with acquiring property, which is a very important part to actually acquire the right property. And then we keep the property for sometimes quite a long period of time, about 30, 40 years. Which means when we look into profitability in our business, we need to look a long way back and then look on how the projects develop and how we sell. Last 2 years has been a lot focus on what we call the aftermarket, taking care of the houses and taking care of all the people living in it during the life cycle of the house. So now we have the very long time frame from acquiring property quite a long time ago until people live there, and hopefully they buy a new property buy a new house from us.
Mm-hmm. So with that kind of organization, building private homes for people, what kind of privacy are you then into? What kind of data do you store in your SAP system?
In the SAP system, it's about our employees. There are about 2,500 employees at the company. So that's one part which has been the main focus. Then even though we're selling the house to an individual, still the main transaction is to an organization. So therefore, there's not that difficult to take care of customer data. So it's more about employee data and the employee data in the financial part of the system.
Mm-hmm. So when the GDPR came, I know you have been working with the GDPR preparations for a long time. So could you describe the first steps that happened at JM? I believe it's about 5 years ago since you took the first steps.
Yeah, it's a smile on my lips. It was I think it was in other companies as well, but it was in my company was panic. Everyone was running around, and everyone talked about the possible penalties of 4% and how it will affect. So it was a lot of people running around, and the first action was, or interpretation of GDPR was, we need to be compliant on operating systems. And perhaps that was a quite big mistake for us. It took some period of time until we understood that GDPR is not about versions of operating systems. It's about something completely different. But it was raised as highest priority very, very early. And so we got a lot of focus and attention on it to start to work on it in a proper way.
Are you then saying that this was a priority from upper management and not just something that you were working within IT?
No, that was a top priority. We have what we call a business development council, more or less, and then this project was given top priority, and then I shouldn't say unlimited budget, but we were allowed to start to take actions without having with all the necessary means, more or less. So it was really a top priority. We put most things at rest in parallel.
So a corporate initiative and a corporate budget.
Yes.
So when the corporate project started, what was the journey from the corporate initiative to you guys in IT being able to do something? Somebody must have told you what they wanted.
Yes, so we had since we're part of a business development, we of course were in control of the project and started the initiative. What we did was to define a model where we went to our business model. The business model is process based, so we have process owners in the business taking care of a different part of how we do the different things. What they have not focused on earlier is the kind of what information do they have in their process and how do they deal with that. So that was the process or the methodology. We went to the process owners. We asked them to describe each of the processes, what information objects do they have, and what data do they contain, and how is the sensitivity of that data. So that ended up in quite a lot of documentation in about several hundred processes about what information objects and the sensitivity of them. And from there, we started to take action. And I would say most actions were about cleaning data, taking care of the business, or defining processes, how we should do things, to actually document how we should deal with the data. Then later it came to actual requirements on us, on IT, because they needed help with cleaning, they needed help to work with routines for retention, routines for searching to find information about individuals, etc. So I would say that initially it was an IT project, and then when we did the retake, it took almost a year of just setting the processes and analyzing the information before it turned back to an IT project again. So, and we think that was the right way to do it. We should probably have started that way from the beginning. But now we also have the attention from the process owners, from the business, about that they own information, that they need to take care of it, they need to have routines, and they need to understand that. So that's good.
Would you describe that as a pleasant side effect of the GDPR, the increased process awareness and the increased awareness of what data do we have and why do we have them?
Yes, a lot, and there was a lot of old data that we could remove. And I think that was quite beneficial, and also to introduce the routines to actually take care of data and to be more thorough when we introduce new data. That, well, why should we keep this data? Are we allowed to keep the data? And that someone feels responsible for it. So that was, I shouldn't say completely new, but quite new for a lot of some parts of the organization.
Richard, does this mean that we are actually now talking about data privacy by design, meaning that when you start a new process or a new system, you think privacy from the very beginning?
Yeah, and if I talk a little bit about what happened after GDPR was that we needed to focus on. We have focused a lot on information security in general. So in that part, we took all the stuff done in GDPR, but we also introduced information security routines in general. So now when we're starting our projects, we have frameworks for how to do information sensitivity analysis, how to do risk analysis, and from there actually coming to requirements on the IT supporting the sensitivity from a complete information security perspective. So GDPR is now becoming, I shouldn't say just a small part, but only one part of it. And initially looking on personal data, we're now looking on all our business data. Yeah, so that's a difference, and it becomes more of a privacy design. Yes.
So the governance that you have around GDPR, is that a separate governance for the GDPR, or is it a general governance around data security and information security?
It's still both, I would say. We introduced a new role as a part of GDPR. That's a risk officer who works together as a corporate function. And he's responsible for all the GDPR routines that they are in place, and to monitor that and to audit that also internally at JM. In parallel, we've built up the information security model, and they are, I would say, emerging right now. I would say the information security methodology is broader, wider, and more thorough, which means the GDPR processes will become much easier, I would say. So the risk officer from a GDPR perspective will have a much easier job. But the rest of the organization are much more involved now, and we don't do anything without looking on the information and on the sensitivity of the information and how it should be dealt and the availability of it. So it's a lot of things going on. But in general, it's from a top management point of view. This is a board issue for us. I report to the board once or twice every year now, how we progress in these areas.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
You said that from the very beginning it was mainly about employee data, but you also said a bit later that you are now looking at business data in general. Have you defined other areas, areas outside the employee data?
Yes, especially when it comes to production. We're building houses, and if a construction site is not producing during a day or during an hour or even 10 minutes, we know how much that costs. Could be many people involved and a lot of equipment that's doing nothing. And we have that measure, and we understand the delay there. So even though they think they construct houses with the physical things, they're still depending on a lot of IT things. So when we ask them what happens if this system is down for an hour, what happens if you can't order material for a day, then things start to become urgent and important and actually very business critical.
Did this whole process give you any surprises as to the data you hold or the governance around data privacy?
Perhaps not many more than that. We've stored a lot of data over time, a lot of data. And the initial processes when we removed data was a huge amount of data, especially if you look on employee data. That was like 50% of the data, more or less, I think we removed. So the necessity of storing some data has been probably one of the lessons learned, that we don't need all the data we have or had. So I think that's important, and also perhaps a piece of the quality of the data, of course, because when you start to introduce, as we did with the EPI-USE, start to introduce rules where you search for data and then trying to remove it, or and then if you don't find it, then you see that the quality of data is poor. You need to start to work with the quality of data, which also is a good thing, because now we can use the data for better things.
Mm-hmm. So this is how things are now. What kind of initiatives do you see going forward that you're considering about security in general and data and data security and protection?
For us, it's been a lot of methodology projects, I would say. Still, I'm responsible for IT. So I want more security mechanisms on an IT level right now. So that's what we're focusing on right now. We are taking care of our operation and increasing the level of security matters. But it has been a journey to come there, because we could have done it just on chance, but now we know what requirements there are. So we need to we understand what level we need to come to, and we know how to measure it, and we know, and I get followed up by the board on every year on where I am on that matter. So this year is focused on the technology part, to actually making sure we have a secure environment. But then in parallel, it's training, of course, training of employees. That's where most things starts, with someone clicking on a link. Of course, as everyone else probably have had different threats and things happening. We've been, cross my fingers, but we've been lucky so far. No really dangerous things, but we've had directed attacks to us. And if people click on the wrong links and let them into the network, and then things happen. Mm-hmm. So training is also a very important part. We work with micro training with all employees. So would say, I don't know how often it is, but it's like every second week people get to go through a micro training in information security.
Interesting. So, no, over to you.
No, I think those are the two main areas right now. Is the technological protection, making sure our operation environment is really more secure than it has been, and training of the employees. That's the focus for this year and perhaps in next year as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Richard, for sharing all this with us. Much appreciated.
Thank you. No problem. It's been a journey together with you. And I think the benefits for JM has been the possibility to actually keep data. As I mentioned, we have these very long business transactions from acquiring property 30 years back until aftermarket, and if we would have needed to remove data, that would have been not that good from a business analysis point of view. The key thing here has been to keep data, to be able to have all the data but remove all the sensitive parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's been really a great benefit.
Thank you.
Thank you.